Hello, everyone. Welcome in. As we're getting started, I want to encourage everyone to grab some pen and paper so you can take notes. Settle yourself in for a very fun workshop where we will be making greeting cards that you can use to gift as a set or use them for yourself, whatever works. We will be getting started here as soon as everyone has come into the room and we're ready to go. This is just your pre-show getting started. So take care, take your time, and we'll get started in just a minute. I want to make sure just everybody gets in the room. Okay, make sure you have your supplies on hand to craft with us. In fact, why don't we put up our first poll as we're waiting just for those last stragglers to join us. Our first poll, we'd love to know if you have taken one of our Cricut workshops before, or if this is your very first workshop and you're just getting started with our live workshops. So we do offer a variety of workshops. We have some very core workshops, our Cricut 101 and our Cricut 102. And if you haven't had a chance to take one of those classes and you're a beginner, I really want to encourage you to join us for one of those classes. Okay, and it looks like we are ready to start. We have everybody in. We've gotten our poll results, so very exciting. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn my camera on here. We'll stop sharing. Hi, everybody. My name is Kesley Anderson. I will be your Cricut coach today. Very excited to have everybody joining us and welcome in. We are going to be making this thank you foiled greeting card here. I have a couple of my favorite greeting cards, but this is the card we'll be making today. Now you can have any color of cardstock that you'd like to have. It doesn't have to be the blues, or we do recommend the silver foil because that's really good with the blue colors. But if you have a different foil, you can certainly use a different color foil. You will, if you don't have a foil and the foil tip, so your foil package looks like this, and then your foil tip will be the little blue tip like this. So you'll want to have this handy. I'm going to go ahead and you're going to clear out that poll when you get a chance. So this is the foil tip you'll want to have. And then we'll also be working with your scoring stylus. And some of you, if you're working with a Cricut Maker, you may use a scoring wheel. And if you're working with the Explorer, you would want to have, let me pull this out here, your stylus right here. So you'd want to use this, this machine. Okay, let me just close that out of the way. There we go. So you'd want to have your stylus, or if you're on a Maker, your scoring wheel, and we will go over all of those materials here in a little bit and how they work together. So what we're going to do first is we'll do a presentation, and in the presentation I kind of walk you through what we're going to make and how you're going to find it and everything. And then I invite you to go into Design Space with me and we can work together. Now, if you're an experienced crafter, I welcome you to work ahead if you want to once we go into Design Space. If you are a beginner, this is geared a little bit more towards beginners who are getting comfortable with their machine. So you may hear me repeat instructions a couple times, but I just really want to make sure that everybody is on the same page and you're understanding what we're doing. If you have questions along the way, please use the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. We have a Q&A icon there in your Zoom window, and you can certainly click on that and ask a question. Some of the questions I will see and be able to answer live, and then some of the questions will be answered. It will be a typed answer from our Cricut experts today, Katie and Christine. And you all may have seen Katie and Christine in our Facebook group. So either they're around and they're great. They're so knowledgeable about Cricut and crafting. So they're going to be great to help out. And then at the end, towards the end of the class, when we complete our project, while anybody's finishing their project up, we will be able to have an open Q&A section. So if there's some dying question that's not necessarily relevant to our project today, we'll be able to answer those at that point. So why don't I go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we'll just start with the jumping into our workshop here of not questions. So we are going to be doing the presentation, and then I will invite everybody. We'll go into Design Space together. So I know it's really hard. You're going to want to go into Design Space, but if you'll wait for me, that would be great. We are recording this class, so we will send you I have the wrong date on this. We will be sending you the recording tomorrow in an email, so keep your eyes out for that. And this is also on YouTube. So if you get kicked out of the class, or you just find YouTube a more comfortable way to watch, you can certainly click over to that link. But we will be sharing the recording with you tomorrow. Okay, so did you know in Design Space that there are over 35,000, yes, 35000, that's 3 zeros, thank you card projects. And that's not just Cricut's thank you card projects, that's also the Cricut community projects. So at the top, if you were to do a keyword search for thank you card, you would have over 35,000 results. Now, for every one Cricut project that is a thank you card based, there are at least 9 Cricut community thank you card projects. So that's all of the wonderful work of fellow crafters who are sharing their craft and sharing their ideas within the Cricut community. And I want to encourage everybody to share your ideas and share what you're making within the Cricut community. And that's how we all will learn and grow. So feel free to share your projects. And you can see right there that the community projects are so many community projects there. Okay. Now, there are 3 easy steps to making any type of project you want to do. The first step is your design, and you can either work from a Cricut project or a Cricut community project. Your design may begin with Cricut images, or you may have uploaded your images, or you may just start from scratch and design your own project right from scratch. So that's step 1. Step 2 is sending your project to the prepare screen, where you will then select your material type, choose your tools, and load your materials into your machine using one of the Cricut mats. And then the last part, this is always my fun part, is to assemble the project by removing the mat from your machine, removing the paper from the mat, reviewing instructions and adhering everything together, and then either enjoying it for yourself or gifting it as a gift to somebody else. Most of us, I think, craft because we want to share our craftiness with other people. So all of that sounds really simple, right? 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, and that's what we're going to do today. So let's dive in to get a little bit more detail on how we're going to put this together. So for your supplies today, you will want to work with a 65 to 80 pound cardstock. Now, your cardstock weight can vary. It doesn't have to be 65 to 80 pound. It may be a little bit lighter. It may be a little bit heavier. So we can work with a large variety. We just recommend 65 to 80 pound. And I'll be working with 12 by 12 cardstock. If you have 8.5 by 11, that is fine. Or if you're joining us with your Cricut Joy or your Cricut Joy Extra, your cards may be a little bit smaller. Then you'll need a scoring stylus. If you have an Explore machine or Maker machine, you can use your scoring stylus. If you're using the Maker machine, you can use a scoring stylus or the scoring wheel. And if you're on one of our Joy machines, we will be doing a manual score. So we'll show you how to do that. Then we'll work with some paper adhesive, and you want to use adhesive that is special for paper. And paper adhesive is not a water-based adhesive, so it doesn't crinkle and absorb into your paper. So you can either use like a glue stick, double-sided tape, you may want to have a glue pen, and you might want to use some 3D foam dots. Then we'll also be using that transfer foil tool. I have silver transfer paper, but you can use whatever color you'd like to work with. And then we'll work with some vinyl tape stripes. Those strips, not stripes, they are strips, but the strips are actually part of the kit, so they're already included in there. So don't worry about that. And if you don't have your foil tool housing, we will still be able to complete the project using a pen. Even if it's a black Cricut pen, we'll be able to do that. So our first step is the design, and we're going to work with one of Cricut's projects. So we'll type in foiled thank you card in the home screen in the keyword search box. When you type that in and you go ahead and hit enter, you'll notice that you have a lot of options. Above the projects are images. So any image that has thank you in it will come up. And then below your images on the home screen is the projects section. And hopefully for all of us, the blue project with the thank you card will be the first project you see. This is the one we're going to start and work with. Now, when you click on a Cricut project, I always call the Cricut projects like the easy button. If you need something quick and easy, or if you're a beginner and you're like, hey, I want to learn how to do that, starting off with the projects is a great way to get started. So this project, whenever you open up a Cricut-based project, you'll notice a few things. One of them is kind of a description of the project, what you're making, and maybe if it's the size of the project will be listed in there, so you know, oh yeah, that's the right size for me. And then you'll have a description of the project, and then you'll have the materials that are needed to make the project. Below that is some more information, including information that will include directions of how to cut and how to assemble. And the great thing, Cricut Design Space has recently updated so that you can find all of this information from your canvas. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that when we go into our canvas. Because sometimes like once you cut it out, you're like, but wait, how am I supposed to put it together? Well, you can easily jump back to the project directions and instructions. Now, at the bottom of every project, whether it's a Cricut project or a Cricut community project, you'll notice that there are two key little icons there. One says customize and the other says make it. When you click on the make it icon at the bottom, it will automatically take you to the prepare screen. So you can use that featured size to know, okay, is this the right size for me, or am I going to have to change the size? And if it's the right size, you can just go ahead and click make it, and it comes right on over to that prepare screen. If you want to customize the design, maybe you want to change some of the text or the wording or some of the images in the design or the shape of a design, then you'll want to go ahead and hit customize. Now, when you select customize, it will bring it right into your canvas. So the whole project, all the layers and everything will show up on your canvas, and then you can kind of change them around from there. So we start off our design, and we picked a project, we brought the project onto our canvas, and now we can manipulate it and change it if you need to or want to. For this particular project we're going to be working with, I wanted to point out some things on our layers panel. On the layers panel, you'll notice that you have all the different layers that will need to be cut. But you also might notice some other layers on there that you might not be familiar with. For example, there is the scoring label, so out layer, the scoring layer. So your envelope will have score lines on it, and that will allow you to fold your envelope pretty easily. If you're on a Cricut Joy, you won't have the scoring tool, so you would want to hide those layers. Now, you also will notice that you have some foil layers, and that tells you that the operation is using the foil tool. So underneath each layer, it'll tell you if it's a scoring line, a cut line, a foil line, or a draw line. If you don't have the scoring tool, we're going to need to change those foil lines to a pen line or a draw line, so we can work through there. Now, when you use your scoring stylus for the Maker or the Explorer, it goes in the A clamp. Let me make sure I'm using, it goes in the A clamp. And that A clamp is on the left side. The great thing, I think, if you're on an Explorer machine, is you don't have to change anything. You can just put that stylus in and go. If you're on the Maker machine, you have the option to use the quick swap tool with the scoring wheel. Now, in Design Space, you do need to indicate if you're changing and not using the quick swap tool on the Maker and you're using the stylus. You'll need to make that change for every layer you cut. And if you get tripped, that always trips people up. So if you've not used your scoring wheel before, or if you, because your scoring wheel goes in clamp B, so you need to swap out your cutting blade for the scoring wheel. So that kind of can always trip people up, especially if you haven't used it before, or if you're on a Maker and you're choosing to use a scoring stylus instead of the scoring wheel, you have to make a little bit of a change in Design Space. Now, if you're joining us without a scoring tool, or you have to do your scoring lines manually, if you have Cricut's paper trimmer, and most paper trimmers have this feature where you can swap out the cutting blade for a scoring blade. So this makes it super easy to do those score lines and get them nice and straight. If you don't have the scoring blade with your cutter, you can still use your cutter and the little groove in the cutter line to make those scoring wheels, the scoring lines. So have no fear, we'll get there. Everyone will get the score lines in there. Now, the other tool we need is the transfer tool, the foil transfer tool. And it's called a kit because you have a blade and then you have additional blades that fit into the tool. You have a fine tip blade, a medium tip blade, and the bold blade. So those three different tips will draw different widths of the line. Your Maker and Explorer will use the same tool. Your Joy will use a separate tool. The Joy tool is just a little bit shorter than your Maker or your Explorer tool. So you want to make sure you have the right tool for the right machine. And then some tips when we start to work with our foil. And then this is always so counterintuitive to me, is you place the foil with the shiny side up. And you'll see why, because you're basically drawing a groove into the foil paper, and that's going to stick down. So when you release the foil, the shiny stays on your paper and the foil comes up. The great part about Cricut's foil is that you don't need to heat it or anything like that. Like, it's a cold press, so you don't need any heat tool or anything to get that foil to stick. The tape is included in the kit, and I want to recommend everybody use that tape. It is a vinyl tape, so it doesn't pull on your cardstock. It can if you rip your foil tape off carelessly, but as long as you're going slowly, it'll come right off. And then the last tip is to pull the foil tight. So if you're experiencing a lot of static cling, you'll notice that your foil will stick to that tape and kind of jump up. But you can realign it and adjust it, and you just want to make sure that you get the foil nice and tight. So in Design Space, again, you'll see that we have that one layer that says thank you with the foil tip. And that's the layer. If you don't have the foil tip, you just need to go to the operations and change that from foil to a pen operation. And so those operations are up on your edit bar. And maybe this is like your second or third class, so that may not be something you're familiar with. Up on the edit bar, you'll see the operations drop-down menu, and you can change a line from either a cut or draw or foil to something different. So we'll change this here from a foil to a pen if you don't have the foil tip, or if you want to just try it with a pen, you can certainly do that in this location, and that's where you would change it. So once you have all that changed, we're ready to send it to your machine and cut it and do that third step, which again is my favorite step, and that's the assembly. So I want to take a moment here and just pause as everyone's getting settled in, and invite everybody to go ahead and open up your, I want to try my Q&A open down here. It's easier for me to see. Go ahead and open up your design space. If it's been a while since you've opened it up, there may be an update. So you want to go ahead and get that design space open and ready to go. Were there any questions in the presentation that might be helpful to review before we jump into design space?
We did have somebody who mentioned that they were unable to open the project on their iPad. Now, I know the foil tool isn't compatible with mobile devices, but we do have a solution for that. Do you want to tell them what we will provide them so they can open it?
Go ahead, because I don't
Okay. No, we have a link that is set, instead of foil, it's set to pen already, so that you can open it on your mobile device.
Great. And also, just as a reminder, we use the Q&A so you can communicate with us. If you have questions or anything like that, you can drop that in the Q&A. And we'll use the chat to provide links or measurements, sizes, or things like that. So if you're like, hey, where do I get that tool or this? Look in the chat and we'll provide the links in the chat. Okay, so while everyone's getting their design space opened up, I'm going to go ahead and share my whole screen so that I can show you, if you're on a desktop or laptop, it's easiest if you can have Zoom and design space open at the same time. So you can kind of go back between the two different screens. So if you're new to Zoom and you really haven't had much of a chance to work with Zoom, I want to show you how to do that. So let's say this presentation here is my Zoom window. I can't actually show you my Zoom window. It just doesn't work that way. But if this is my Zoom window, you see these three little dots up here. You have the minus, and then the box and the X. Do not click the X. That will close out whatever program you're in. So you don't want to click the X. The square box represents like the size of your window, what you're viewing. So if you click on that, it'll make your design really big, your window really big, or you can use that to make your window smaller. And then you can use the little arrows here to adjust the size of your window. So I can just adjust my size like that. Then I would just grab my design space, do the same thing. I would come up here with those squares and make design space a little smaller here. So I can just pull my design space. So I have my design space, and then you'd have like your Zoom window. Oops. You'd have your Zoom window right there, and you can either kind of switch between the two windows as you need to. You can just kind of switch. Oops, I didn't want to grab that one. You can switch between your Zoom window and your design space window. Okay, so I'm only showing you that to kind of just help make it a little easier if you're trying to look at both windows, both your Zoom and your Zoom window and your design space. Because I'll say like, okay, have your eyes on my Zoom window so I can show you the step we're going to do, and then you'll go over to design space and do it yourself. If you're using a mobile device, you may want to, if you have a second mobile device to use, or if you can use your desktop or laptop, that usually makes it easier to see. So let's go ahead and go into design space. So I've got, let me share my design space with everybody. There we go. Okay, so here's my design space here, and I was working on a project earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and give myself an empty canvas. So I just clicked on a new project, and that will clear out my canvas. And then I'm going to go up to the top in the header bar and select the home screen. From the home screen, you can do a keyword search here using, oops, where was I today? Okay, in the home screen here, you can do a keyword search for foiled, and it's FOILED, thank you card. And then you hit enter. Now you'll notice that with the thank you card, just in the images alone, there's almost 9,000 images available to use that image on a thank you card. But for today, we're going to go ahead and start with the projects. So we're going to click on the project link, and we can use customize or make it. If you want to if you're ready to go and you want to just jump to the make it, you absolutely can. But if you need to do any customization, I'm going to walk you through some of the customization tips. So if you want to follow along, we want to go to customize. And what that will do is it will open that project up on your canvas. And I'm going to just make my canvas here a little bit smaller so we can work together on this. Here we go. Go a little bit smaller. I've got my, there we go. I have my text set a little bit bigger on my monitor so you guys can see it a little bit easier. So I apologize if I have to move things around. Okay, so we do have the score lines that are available on the envelope and the card. If you're on the Cricut Joy or the Joy Extra, you may notice that in the right side here, you will have some like red caution error, like you can't go any further, stop, pause, something you need to fix. And what you need to fix there, I'm gonna give that a second to show up. It looks like I'm lagging just a little bit. What you need to fix there are these score lines. Since your machine doesn't allow for score lines, you can just, on the layers where it says score, you can hide those layers. So we'll just go to that eyeball and click on the eyeball and it hides that layer. You also will need to resize your design so that it will fit onto your Cricut Joy machine. So the envelope is quite large. It is 6.91 inches. So you'll just need to minimize the size there. And if we can put those measurements in the chat, that would be great. What people need to reduce it down to, if you guys have that handy. Okay, and then if you are choosing to, so this layer here that says thank you, where it says medium foil, this will be the foil layer. If you don't have the foil tool, this is the layer that we need to change. So if you click on just that one layer, now if you look up here, this section is all grouped together. So you have your foil layer, the blue cutout, and the silver cutout. Those are all grouped together. If I select just that one layer at the top there, the group heading, when I go to my operations, it says multiple. And that means your machine is going to have to do multiple operations within that group. So you've got more layers selected than you need. So we need to go within that group and only click on the layer that says medium foil. So if you want to have your eye, if you need to do this and you want to put your eyes on my screen, I'll show you how to click on just that one layer. I've got the whole grouping selected right now, but all I have to do is take my mouse or your finger and click on that thank you medium foil layer. And then with the darker green box there, it indicates I only have that one layer selected, and this is my medium foil layer. So instead of using a foil tool, I'm going to go to the operations, choose pen, and then you can change your pen color. Now, here's a question we always get. Do I need to change my pen color? So if it comes in as a fine point black, but I want to use, say, a silver galaxy type of pen, do I need to change that color? The answer is no, you do not need to change that color. Your machine does not know what color or type of pen you're putting in. It just knows that you're asking it to create a pen color. I mean, you're asking it to create pen lines. Okay, and are there any, if you have any questions or you need an extra moment to do that, take that moment now. If you're good with me and you have a question, you can pop that in. I just want to give everybody a chance to remove score lines if you need to. I want to give everybody a chance to resize if you need to, and to change the operation if you need to. Oh, good question, Jean. How do you change the color? So the color you would change by simply clicking on the layer. Again, if you notice, this envelope layer has both score lines and the basic cut line. The basic cut line represents kind of like the card, the paper that you're using. So you would want to select only the basic cut shape. And then up in the edit bar where you see that blue box that matches the color of my envelope, you can click on that and you'd have a drop-down menu, and then you can change the color there. And we do that in our 102 class. So if you've taken our 102 class, I know you guys are super professional there and you guys know how to do that. Another good question is, how do you change the thank you? So the thank you here, this is actually an image. Now, I did do another project using this image, using this card, and I really changed it out to be more holiday-esque. But it's an image, so you would just need to hide that image and recreate it. You could also, if you're familiar, if you've taken 102, you might be familiar with the contour. So you could contour out the thank you and then type something else into there using a text box. If we have time at the end, I'd be happy to go back. I'd be happy to go back and change that. I'll show you guys how to do that if we have time at the end. And Karen's saying, oh, I got lost for a second. Why do I need to change from foil to pen? If you do not have the foil tool, you will not be able to do that line. That the thank you layer requires the foil tool to do that line. But you can change that from a foil to a pen. So if you don't have the foil tool, that's where you would want to change that. Okay, so oh, another great question. You guys are asking so many great questions, and I see Katie and Christine are answering those questions. This is a good question, is does the foil mean cardstock or foil? And the answer to that question is no. The foil cardstock are these, and I put lotion on my hands while I was talking. I shouldn't have done that, but our foil cardstock, it's not foil cardstock. The foil sheets are these really thin sheets that have a shiny side and a dull side. They come in a package like this. And they also come in larger sizes. If you're working with a Maker or an Explorer, they come in 12 by 12 sizes. And then they also have these white sheets, which are actually the vinyl adhesive strips we'll use to put that on there. So you don't want to, you can cut out the around the thank you card. You can cut that piece out of foil, but you don't have to. Like I've done some where I've just used cardstock. So you can use a foil cardstock if you want. You can use a glitter cardstock if you want. If you're using pattern paper, maybe you want to do like an acetate so it's clear. Whatever you want to do there, you can, it's up to you how you want to put your card together. All right, so good questions, and let's move on to the prepare screen. Now, from here, the idea of this workshop is so that we're going to make one card together, and then I'm going to come back and show you how you can make multiples of this card. Because actually, I'm going to stop myself real quick here. You can take like a little container. This is just a little wooden box from the Dollar Tree. And I made a set of cards to go in here. These are just a little thank you. And it has, I put a little elastic there, but I have like the little thank you and then a set of envelopes to go with it. And I decorated the inside of the tray. So I can just gift these either as like a house gift. If I'm invited to somebody's house, I can just gift them a little set of thank you cards that they can use, or you can really do anything you want. But that makes it like a cute little gift. So the idea is that we're going to make one together, and then I'll show you how you can take this project and make multiples of it super easy. So, all right, let's go in. I think we're ready to send this. I've paused. Hopefully everyone's caught up. We're going to go ahead and select the make. So when you click on make, it will take you to the prepare screen. And what I want you to see is what is going to go on to each prepare screen. And again, if anybody has any questions or it didn't go over like you thought it would, please drop those in the Q&A. So your first layer will be the back of the medallion that says thank you. And then your second layer will be the card, the envelope, and you have the foil is on the same layer as the envelope. I want to show you how I'm going to move that into a different mat because I want to just do that layer on its own mat. So if you want to put your eyes on my screen, I'm going to walk through it once and then we'll walk through it together. So that third prepare screen has both the envelope and the foil on the same screen. Now, if you're a seasoned Cricut user and you're comfortable having those on the same mat, by all means, you can leave it there. I just like to have the foil on its own mat so I can kind of be a little fussy with my foil and make sure I get it all set up and right. So you click on that image, whatever image you want to move, and you click on these three little dots in the upper corner. When you click on the dot, another window pops up, and we're just going to move this object. Now, if you wanted to, you can move it to a different piece of color that you're already cutting out, or you can create a totally separate mat by clicking on the new plus button. You can choose a color. So I'm going to choose the green, the dark green color, and I'll confirm that I want to move that medallion onto the dark green mat. Selecting the dark green color does put it down at the bottom of my mat, so it will be the fourth line I cut, the fourth piece I cut. Okay, so now if you want to go into design, back to your design space screen and do this with me, I'll talk you through it. You should have three prepare screens. So you should have, your first screen will be the back of the medallion, or I don't know what to call these, medallion seemed right. And then you'll have your card, and the last mat will be the envelope and the thank you. So we're going to put that thank you on its own mat. So to do that, I will click on that image, whatever shape you want to move. When these three little dots appear in the corner, you'll click on the dots and you'll say move object. So I'm going to say move object, and I will click on that plus icon on a new mat. And I'm going to go ahead and pick that dark green color, and I'll confirm that. Now you'll notice on mine, the foil color is gold. That's totally fine. I'm going to use silver, but if I wanted to use gold, I absolutely could use gold, and your machine doesn't know the difference. So if yours shows up as silver or gold, don't worry about it. You can use whatever color you'd like. Now, before you continue, you want to make sure that you go back up to your first mat and click on the first mat. And the reason I say that is the other day I was doing something and I had left my cursor on the second mat, but I thought I was on the first mat and I cut out the wrong piece. So if you have your number 4 mat selected, like I do on my screen now, and I hit continue and you're not paying attention because you're just kind of going. When I hit continue, it will cut this 4th mat instead of my first mat. So I can always change that here and come up and say, nope, I want to cut my first mat on the material screen. But if you're like me and sometimes you just get a little distracted, it's a good reminder to make sure that before you go to the material screen, you've got your first mat selected. Now you could also gang your cuts together on the same mat if you're cutting the same cardstock for each mat, and you could just choose one material. I will go back and show you how to do that after we've cut one. I want everybody to be able to cut one card, and then we'll share some tips and tricks for your second card. So for this, I'll just be using medium cardstock, and my cardstock is the same cardstock that I'm using throughout my project. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it marked as medium cardstock. And I'm going to grab, I always have my sample cardstock to show you guys how to know the difference. So you just want to click on that remember material settings. And now your light should be flashing on your cutter to go ahead and cut through. And don't forget, guys, this class is being recorded, and you'll get the recordings available to you. We put if you can't wait till tomorrow, just copy the link we put in the chat, and you can even go back after the class and watch it. We want to make sure everybody understands what we're doing and you guys get cutting. So let me move this out of the way a little bit and talk to you about your colors. So I have 3 different kinds of paper here. Let me just take these 2 here. So my first one here, this happens to be a pattern paper, but it's really, really light. So when I hold it in my hand, it flops over like this. This is like copy paper weight. So if in your material selection, if your paper is this floppy, you want to choose copy weight paper. If your paper is a little bit less floppy, like it's still sturdy, but it kind of has a little bit of a flop to it when you have your fingers behind it, this is more your 60-pound weight paper. If when you hold your paper up, it really keeps its form, this is more like 80-pound paper. So if your paper really flops, you want to use a copy weight paper. If it semi-flops, you can use a medium weight paper if you want. And if it's really firm, you might want to use like a heavy cardstock weight paper. Selecting the right weight of paper is very important to your project because when you're cutting, your machine has certain cuts for the speed and the weight of the paper that you're using. So if you say you're using a copy weight paper, it's going to be a little bit lighter when it cuts. But if you've actually put in a heavy cardstock and you have a light cardstock setting, you're not going to get a good clean cut. So you want to make sure that you have the right weight of paper selected in your materials to go through and cut it. My light is flashing, and I'm sure you guys are anxious to get over there and start cutting your project. So let's flop over to my my overhead here. Oh, I'm not connected. Sorry. I wonder why that's not connected. Let me get my camera connected. Okay. All these wires. Get that turned on. Oh. Where'd it go? There we go. All right. Sorry, guys. Of course, it's not going in. There we are. Okay. Guess that just came undone. So we should be connected there. There we are. All right, so here I am at my overhead. Now, that first layer we're going to cut uses just your fine point blade. If you've been cutting glitter or some other kind of like chunky material, you can always push the top of your blade in and make sure that there's no debris in your blade. If your blade drags on your paper, that's always my first thing I'm going to check and say, ooh, what's going on with that? Do I have an issue there that's causing it to drag? Like if I've checked and made sure I've got the right material selected and it's still kind of dragging, that's my first go-to check. Now I'll be using Cricut's cardstock. This is the holiday sampler package, and it has such fun colors in it. That I really enjoy using these colors. You have a dark green, a light green, a turquoise, a red, and a dark red. I think I've used up all the dark red. So I'm going to use those colors to cut. So my first thing that you're cutting is the back of the medallion. So I'm going to use just this cream color. If you have a foil or glitter cardstock, you're more than welcome to cut with that, whatever you'd like to cut with. So this is the first part we're going to cut here is this background piece. I'll have my light grip mat, and your mats come with this plastic sleeve on it. So you want to save this. And I always put a sticker on the bottom of mine so that I know which side goes back on, which way it goes back on your mat. When you're putting your paper on your mat, you can use a scrap of paper, like you don't have to use the full sheet of paper here. We're going to line the corner up with the corner here. Your first cut comes down about 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch over. So you always have a little bit of extra wiggle room at the top and the side. Once you've placed your mat down, or your paper on your mat, you want to use like a brayer, a rolling pin, even if you want to grab your rolling pin from your kitchen, your wedge tool. What you want to do is you want to make sure that that paper is nice and stuck to your mat. It's not going to come off. It's not going to wiggle around. And then we're going to go ahead and open up your machine, slide your light grip mat underneath these 2 white blades and let her rip. Now, you do want to use a light grip mat when you're working with cardstock. And the reason for that is the light grip mat doesn't have as much stick to it. So it releases your paper better than the standard grip mat. I do use older standard grip mats that have been used and used and used. I will use those with my cardstock, but for the most part, I like to keep my light grip mats for my cardstock cabinets. All right, woohoo, we're making that first cut. Okay, and then once it's cut, now this is always a fun part to teach people. Once you've made that cut, let's say you're looking at it and you're like, oh, I don't see my cut lines. I'm not sure it cut. You can take your weeding tool and kind of come underneath and make sure that it actually did cut. If for some reason it did not cut through, instead of hitting this arrow button and releasing your mat, you can hit the play button a second time. It will bring the mat back in and make that cut for you. And then you'll want to just check that your mat is, your blade doesn't have any stuff on it. What I like to do when I remove my material from my mat is to turn my mat over and I pull my mat back by the corner and I hold my material down. Usually I do this on my flat surface, but looks like I don't have that much room today. So we're just going to pull that off. Now, if I were to just rip, let me just show you guys. If I were to just take this by the hand and pull this off, look how it wrinkles. It curls. So now my project is curled, or my paper to use for another project, it's curled. So when you turn your mat upside down and you remove the cardstock from your mat that way, it definitely gives it a cleaner release from your mat. Now, everybody's card may be, your order of your cuts may be a little bit different if you change the colors. And don't feel like you have to cut it out of the colors that the project is in. You are the creator and you get to design and trade out your colors if you'd like to. So for this first mat I'm cutting, this is my card. This will be the fold over card. And I want to show you guys in Design Space how, if you're using your maker machine and you don't have the scoring wheel, which looks like this. So the scoring wheel is the quick swap tool and it pops on and off the top. You just push it in and it comes out. And it's the scoring wheel. It's 01, we'll say on there. But let's say you don't have that yet and you are using your scoring stylus. You'll put your scoring stylus. This is for the maker, or oops, I'm sharing my screen. Hold on. Sorry, let me go ahead and show you first in Design Space. In the materials screen, you just need to go to where it says Load Tools and Material. You'll see a line there that says Edit Tools. I'm going to edit my tool and change that to the scoring stylus and then click apply. Now I can put my scoring stylus in the machine and the fine point blade. If I don't do that, and I don't have the scoring stylus in here, your maker won't advance to the next cut. It'll just kind of keep bouncing back and forth. So if you don't have that scoring wheel, you want to use your stylus. It goes in clamp A. Go ahead and put it in and give it a push, and it will push right down. And then same thing, we're going to load our mat in and cut out our mat. So if you guys are with me, and the bottom of your Zoom is like a reactions. If you're cutting along with me and you're at my pace, go ahead and give the thumbs up and let me see how everybody's doing. All right, you guys are getting it. Love it. So the first step it does, all right, oh, I see some smiley faces. I don't know, I see crying smiley faces sometimes in those reactions, and I'm not sure what that means, if that's a happy cry or like an, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed cry. The first thing it does is it'll do that score line. And then next it will do the cut line. So see how it does that cut line for me? Okay, so now I just go ahead and slide that out and I'm ready to go. And if you hit any roadblocks along the way of your making this project, please don't hesitate to reach out to Katie and Christine. Just let them know, hey, I'm on this type of device, or I'm using this type of machine, and this is where I'm getting caught up and I'm having a little bit of trouble. Could you please help me? Now, the next layer is going to be my envelope. And for this one, I'm going to go ahead and use a piece of red cardstock. And instead of using the stylus, I'm going to go ahead and use my scoring wheel so you can see how that works. There's really no benefit to the scoring wheel over the stylus. I do think when you're working with heavier materials, especially materials that are made just for the maker, you do want to use the scoring stylus because it does put down a little bit more pressure. But as far as cardstock goes, I get the same results whether I'm using the stylus or the scoring wheel. And Cricut even has, I don't know if I have it over here, but we have a double scoring wheel. So when you're working with like chipboard or something like that, you can, here it is. This is what the double scoring wheel looks like. It has two scoring wheels in it. So when you're working with chipboard or something, you need to fold that, you would use the double scoring wheel, and it gives it just a little bit more of a score to make those heavier folds successful. I love my little machine that holds on. It's like a little robot on my desk. I wish it was a vacuum. Wouldn't that be great if there was like a little vacuum underneath here? Keep my desk clean.
Hey, Coach.
Yeah.
I noticed that you have your machine or your mat in technically upside down.
Oh, yeah.
Can you just explain why that's okay and why you do it?
Yes. So that's a great question, Katie. Thank you. Your mat can go in either way. So it just can't go sideways. So on your mat, you have markings in inches along the top. And when you turn it over, you have markings, I think these are centimeters along the top and the side. So whichever way you want to work, whichever measurement works best for you, you can use the mat going in without the tab at the top or with the tab at the top. You just have to make sure that the numbers are facing up and not sideways because it won't fit that way. And if you're using smart cardstock, then you don't have to even use a mat. You would just use your the paper in there. Okay, so I'm turning over and I'm removing my mat. This is a fairly new mat that I'm using here, so it's got a little bit more stick than when I'm using an older mat. All right, so I'm on to my level 4. And if you're not here yet, that is perfectly okay. Keep working where you are. and you're gonna catch up. We've got lots to do. So we'll just keep working along. Now, for this last layer, we have the foil. So if you aren't here yet, if you haven't gotten to the foil stage, I do want to encourage you to put your eyes on my screen so you can see how to put the foil down, and you'll be comfortable with that when it comes to your turn to do it. So I put my cardstock on my mat. I'm giving it that nice push down here with the brayer that holds everything down. And then I'm going to take my foil. So your foil, no matter what color you're using, there's so many fun foil colors. You have little kits too that come with, I want to show you guys some of the different foils. Like you have this one that has like a hot pink and a red and a copper. You have a foil green, a purple, and a blue. And I use mostly the Cricut Joy size. I don't know why. That's the size I have, but I like that size because it's I usually only foil small pieces. Like I don't foil a whole 12 by 12 piece. So the foil, the little Joy size ones are perfect for me. And I did, as I mentioned, while I was doing my presentation, I put some lotion on my hands. So you can see my fingerprints. I can see my fingerprints on my foil. So you kind of do want to have your hands clean before doing that. Okay, so I'm taking one sheet and I'm going to put it down where my cut is going to happen. It's a little bit bigger than my design is. My design is about 4 by 5 inches. So let's see if I take this, your design is going to be a little bit bigger. I mean, a little bit smaller than this rectangle, and you can trim your foil down. Like if you just are doing a small piece, you could trim your foil down. You don't have to use the whole piece when you're using the foil. And then this is the vinyl strips that I'm going to use to hold my foil in place. Now this is the tricky part, and it took me a while to get comfortable and to kind of understand how to work with it. So I want to give you all my best tips. I'm just going to take a few pieces. You can sometimes it's easier to have them ready to go. So if you want to take 4 pieces off and just put them on your machine here, you'll be ready to go. Now you can see, I don't know if you guys can see on the camera, see how like when I put my hand over it, they kind of jump up to me, like they stick on my hand. I don't know why this vinyl strip does that, but it's like one of those red fish in your hands that kind of like curl. So just be prepared for that to happen. See how it curls around your finger. You're not even doing anything, and it does that. So just be prepared for that to happen. I take the corners of this vinyl strip and I'll hold it tight in my fingers. Not like I'm going to tear it tight, but taut. And then when I put it on the foil, the foil can kind of jump up and meet your strip. So don't panic if that happens. I like to put my fingers on the foil and just let that kind of come up and meet my adhesive. And then you just take that first layer and you put it down like that. So you've got a nice smooth layer down like that. So it's always the shiny side is going to be up. Okay, then we're going to take that second piece and we're going to do the same thing on the bottom side. But this time I'm going to hold it this way so that this end of the adhesive strip is open, and let it just grab the foil as it wants. Then I hold it, I pull it tight. So again, you want to do taut and pull it really tight. Now I had a little bit of a wrinkle there, which is okay. It's not going to affect too much my design, I think. But if I were concerned it was going to affect my design, I could just come back where it wrinkled up, fix it. So you're going to just put your foil down, make sure it's taut, and then put that vinyl down on top of it. So I've got 2 sides down. It's nice and taut. And then I'm going to do my 3rd side and then my 4th side, same technique. Pulling, once I get it onto the foil, I kind of pull it away from itself to be nice and taut, like that. Okay, now if I had more designs on my sheet, I could put more pieces of the foil on here. I could fill this up with designs, which we're going to do for our second run. If you feel like it, you can certainly come back and you have plenty of the foil strips. So if you're like, ooh, that's a gap there, I'm not really comfortable with that gap, you can just grab a little piece of foil and put that down. Now, if you get a lot of wrinkles in your foil, it will affect how smoothly the foil tip will run over the foil, but that kind of is a learning thing that you get comfortable with. So with your foil tips, you'll have 3 different foil tips, right? So you'll have, pull these out, you'll have your 3, which is your bold, 2, which is your medium, and 1, which is your fine. So we want to make sure you have the 2 in your blade as the medium tip. And you can see the difference between your Cricut Joy and your Express and your Maker. It's a bigger tool. So it doesn't, they're different tools for the different machines. Okay, so you can pull this out. It's got magnet in there to suck it in. And then we'll just take our fine point blade out of plant B, put this one in. Okay, so I've got that one in there, and then I'm just going to run this in. So first it will do the foil, and then it will do the cut line. So once it does the foil, you want to remove the foil strip and then do the cut line. Nancy's asking, can regular foil be used? And Nancy, could you be a little bit more specific on what you mean by regular foil? Like tin foil? Is that what you're thinking? Or is there another type of foil you're thinking? Because there are different types of foil. Some foil requires heat to put it down. Some foil requires an adhesive to put it down. This foil is designed by Cricut to be used with the foil transfer set. So Nancy, no, again, your foil here that we're using, that's a really good question. So she says, no, she means aluminum foil. This foil has like I don't want to call it an adhesive, but like when it's pushed from the front, when the blade runs over it, it goes into your paper. So it becomes part of your paper. So it does have a special cup backing to it that goes onto your the paper. So good question. Why can't we keep the foil on the light blue mat where it kept on the green? So on the light blue mat where it cut your envelope out, your foil was down here. So you really have to pay attention to how you put your foil on the mat and get it just in the right position. So this was my red, what would be your blue sheet. So I find as a beginner, if you're getting started, it's easier to just separate it and have it on its own mat where you can kind of baby it if you need to. And by baby it, I mean you want to watch it. I enjoy watching it. So yes, you did not need to move the foil to a different mat, but as you're getting started and as you're understanding where to place the foil on the mat, I think it's easier just to move it to a different mat. And hopefully if you've never moved pieces around your mat, you've learned something new there. All right, so now we're not going to unload our mat because our unload button's not flashing, but the play button is flashing. So our next steps are to carefully remove your vinyl strips here. We're just going to remove these on here. You just kind of remove them on. And if you want to, you can use your weeding tool just to kind of get under there. I like to do it slowly because I don't want to tear my cardstock. It shouldn't, the vinyl strips are designed to work on cardstock, so it shouldn't tear your cardstock, but I kind of like to make sure that it's not going to. And just be a little extra careful with it. Okay, now you can see on mine, I don't know if you guys can see, but in this little corner here, the blade did overlap a little bit on the vinyl, and that did not interfere with the transfer of the foil onto that vinyl. So if you do have it a little bit covered like that, don't worry, it'll still transfer. And then we're going to take out our foil tip and set that aside, and we'll grab our fine tip and put that back in and run that one through next. And those are the 4 cuts you need to make your cards. So we'll go ahead and we'll assemble this one together, and then I'm going to show you how to make 4 cards at once. Just super easy, and that if you're gift giving these, that makes it super helpful. I like the word super today. I don't know why I'm using that, but there we go. How shiny and cool is that? I love that look. Okay, so again, I'm turning my mat over and I'm taking this off. Now, normally when I'm done cutting, I would completely cover my mat back up, but since I'm going to come back and do more cuts, I'm just going to tuck my mat underneath my machine while I'm getting ready for my next set of cuts. So I'll put that up there. And if you wanted to, you didn't have to use a whole 12 by 12 sheet for the little medallion piece. You could have just cut a little square piece to use that. So you didn't have to do it that way. Oh, how is a pen used instead of the foil tip? You know what? I should show you that, because for anybody who is on that step, thank you, Nancy, for asking that question. I'm going to put my, I'll put my mat right back on there. And let me just go into Design Space and switch that up. So I'll share my screen again. Let's see, I'm done cutting. I'm going to just change that operation on the thank you label here. We'll just change that from the medium foil. I'll change that to a pen. And then I'm going to make it. Again, I'm going to put it on its own mat just to make it easier. Put on a new mat with green. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to make this layer first. And you can use any color. Like I said, you can use any pen that you would like to use. So my medium cardstock and then my pens are right here. Okay, so now I'm ready to go. It says I need to load in my pen and my fine point tip. My cutting tip. So I've got my pens here, and I could choose, you can really do almost any pen you'd like to. Let's see the copper pen, how that, I like to use my paper, and I'll kind of draw on it in spots where I'm not going to use and see. Oh, I like that. That looks good. See how my colors are going to look. Ooh, that, I like that. I like the gold. I've got everything else silver. I'll use the gold. So once you've selected the pen you want to use, again, in the software, it doesn't matter what you said. Like you could have said, I'm going to use the black fine point pen, but in reality, we're going to use this. Is that gold? That is gold. Oh, it's a little, is it? I don't know what this is. Let's see. This is silver. That one looked different. Maybe it's a different blade, a different tip. Anyway, so I'm going to take my pen, and I always put it with the arrow facing me. I click it into the clamp A. We're going to close that up, and then we're just going to go. So it's, the process is very similar to the foil. You just don't have the foil to put down and change out your blade in clamp B. So you're just going to draw the lines instead of using the foil, and you'll get really beautiful results. So Nancy, thank you so much for asking that. It was a great question. Okay. Yes, Sonia, the pen tip point and the color don't matter in the software. So like, as long as you're saying, okay, let me clarify that. As long as you're saying, I'm going to make this with a pen, I want to draw this line out instead of using the foil, you're fine. if you were doing a drawing with multiple colors, you would want to say, you know, which color you're using. But since I'm only, or maybe even the type, like you can see in Design Space, different pen tips will have different widths. So if I were using like the gel tip here, if I were going to use the silver gel tip, it's a much thinner tip than the marker tip. So if I wanted to see what that would look like in Design Space, I could do that. I could test that out. And then I do like to store, if I'm storing my pens in a separate container, I do like to put them in with the tip down so that the ink is at the bottom and kind of flowing down the pen when I'm ready to use it. And if you have not used, I'll just do a little side note here while that's printing. If you haven't used the opaque pens, these are so fun to use. They were great during Halloween, but like the white one, how fun. Sorry, my thing is moving on me, but it just gives such a nice finish on projects, especially on black. Oh, now it's going to do the cut for me. Yes, Lisa. Okay, good question. So the pen isn't going to work with the foil to put it on the card. That's correct. The pen is in place of the foil. I apologize that that was confusing. So now we can just, I can show you guys the difference. And if you wanted to, I could do another, I wonder if, let me try something. If I were going to do it again, let's just flip my paper over here and we'll change out this tip. I don't know if it'll work if I just send this through again. I always do also will try the pen and make sure that the tip is juicy, because if you use a dried out tip, it won't give you a good cut. So I just reloaded it. I hit the play button. Let's see if it'll do the start automatically. I don't think it will. Okay, so here's the difference between the foil is this one and this was the pen. So you can see the pen is a bit thicker than the foil, but it still looks really pretty. Okay, so now that we've done both the pen and the foil, let's assemble our first card here together. So you have just 4 pieces of your project. You have your envelope, your card, and your medallion and the thank you. So I'm going to use my envelope and show you all how to do a score line if you needed to. So I'll take that score blade off my paper trimmer. I store it on the back. You have a little tab there to store it in, and then you pull out your carrier there, remove your blade, put your scoring blade in the groove there. So if you don't have the scoring blade, you can still use that groove. We'll clamp that back on, and then I'm going to come back and I'll line up where the score line needs to go, and I just run the scoring tool along that. Now, most papers will have the ability to do the scoring. It just may be a different brand, but you still will have the ability to do the scoring with your paper trimmer. And if you don't have that blade, grab your weeding tool, put it in the groove, and groove on down. That will do it as well. The paper trimmer is really one of my favorite tools. I use that all the time. And then when you got it scored, you just use your scoring lines, and you're going to fold your paper along the score lines. The longer piece is the bottom of your envelope, and the top piece is the shorter piece is the top of your envelope. So I folded up the bottom piece, and then I'm going to put some adhesive along the side here. Now, if I'm mailing this, I will have it hand stamped. I'll go to the post office and #1, have it hand stamped, but it may require a little bit of extra postage. So just keep that in mind. You can also put it in a plastic sleeve if you're mailing it. so that it doesn't just go through the mail raw. You can just put a little plastic sleeve in there. Now, if you don't want to hold your envelope while that glue adhesive dries, you can use paper adhesive, like a tape runner, or you can just put little clamps on your envelope and you can set that aside while it dries. For the thank you portion of my card, I have some 3D dots here. These are just foam dots, and I'm putting them on 4 different parts of my design, the top, the bottom, and both sides. And then I'll just put that on the medallion background. Oh, I can't wait to see where everybody does, how everybody's doing. My clamps, Susan, those I think I mentioned I sew. So those are in the sewing area of most stores that have crafts. Like I've seen them at local Walmarts, but your craft stores will have these little wonder clips is what they're called. You can order them online. They come in packs. I use them a lot in my crafting and my sewing. Okay, so then I'm going to fold my card along my score line there. And if you really want to make sure that you get a really good score, you can grab your bone folder and just push along those lines. This is actually not bone, it's wood, but that's the concept of it, is an old-fashioned whalebone folder. And then my adhesive I'm using here is this Ultra Bond from iCraft. And this, I found this little pen size one. It's the cutest thing ever. I have about 3 of them because it's like chapstick. You know, you got to have one in every purse, in every drawer. But my kids know this is off limits for them. Okay, and then I just put adhesive around it, and then you line that up on the center of your card and put that on. And there we go. There is our first thank you card. And you can make this into a complete set. You can just give one thank you card if you want. I love thank you cards. I think writing a thank you card is so special, and it's such a nice touch when somebody gives you something, or just to say, hey, thanks for being a friend, thanks for being a neighbor, thanks for taking my class. You know, whatever you need to thank somebody, a little thank you card goes a long way. And I love the handmade touch. And if you have somebody who is craft worthy and they would enjoy a handmade card, well, here we go. And then that just slides right into your envelope. I'm nervous that I didn't let my envelope dry enough. So I'm being a little bit gentle with it. That will pop right in there. And there we go. Now, as far as closing it, I like to use the Cricut's sticker cardstock and make just little hearts or circles with it. You can use the like heat up stuff. I can't think what those are called, but like the wax seals on these. Oh, that'd be so cute. And you can give those as a gift as well. So that is how you make one card. But what if you want to make multiple cards and you want to be able to gift those to somebody? So let's come back over here. I'm going to switch us back over to our main screen. I saw somebody say something about being craft worthy. What was that comment?
They love that word.
Because if you give something to somebody that you've like put time and effort into, and they're like, oh, thanks. No, I made that for you. That's special.
It was made with love.
Huh?
It was made with love.
Right? And hours of tears and sweat. Come on. Okay, so let's go back into design space. If you are still cutting and still doing the assembly, by all means, you can continue doing that. If you want to see how we can cut out multiples of the cards, I'm going to show you how to do that now. So if you want to pause a moment on your assembly so you can watch this. But also don't forget, this is all being recorded. So if you're like, I'm only getting my first piece cut out, Kathleen, you're going a little bit fast for me. This is all recorded. You'll be able to go back. You can fast forward to this point in the workshop. It's an hour and 20 minutes in. So you can just fast forward that YouTube video to the hour and 20-minute point and pick up from here. So if you're working on your project, I want you to keep working and get that done, because we're going to challenge everybody at the end of class. So, all right, let me show you in Design Space. And if you know this, you know this. Like if you know this, you've been like, oh, I've been doing that for years. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and cancel because we've completed our project, and I'm going to come back and switch it back from the pen tip to a foil tip, and I'm just going to take this layer that says draw and change that to the foil tip, and I'll use a medium foil tip again. So I'm not changing anything other than that because I had changed it. But if you're using the foil tip, you don't have to change anything. So we're going to go to the make screen and the prepare screen here. Now remember, we have these 3 layers. We did move one, so that's fine. But now we're back to the beginning and we have our 3 layers. But I really want to make this easy, and I want to cut as many as I can in one time. So what if I want to make a set of 4 cards for my craft-worthy friend? I'm going to come up to the top here where it says Project Copies and change that. It started off as 1, and I'm going to change that Project Copies, and I want to make 4 of these cards. So I go ahead and say Apply. Now what that does is it takes it from 1 card to making 4 cards. So on each mat, you'll have 4 of something. It may require more than 4 like we had 3 mats, but you'll see. So this is our medallion background. We'll cut. And then your cards, you'll get 2 cards on 1 piece of 12 by 12. And then your envelope here has 2 thank yous on each of the envelopes here. And then I'm not sure what this is. And then you have 2 envelopes. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do the same thing I did before, where I moved the thank you onto its own mat. And I'll tell you why, because I like to keep things easy and consistent. So I'm going to move each of those onto a green mat, and I'll push them all the way to the 4 corners of the mat. And I'm doing this, you do not have to do this, but like I said, I like to make it easy and foolproof for myself. So I'm just going to take my designs and push them to the 4 corners of the mat. And then I know where to put my foil pieces on my paper. Now I may be wasting a little bit of cardstock, but I'm okay with that. I'm okay losing out on the middle of my cardstock. I'll trim that out and save that for a future project in my scrap bin. There we go. There's that last one hiding around. So I just take it, I say move object onto the green mat, and I'll have all 4 of these on the green mat. And you'll notice they kind of come in at weird spots, so you just have to find them and move them. So now on my green mat, I have 4 of the medallions. I could move them up or down. If you are using different paper, like if you're not using 12 by 12 paper, you can change your material size right here on each of the mats. So if this mat I were using, say, an 8.5 by 11 size paper, where's my 8.5 by 11? I see A4. Where's letter? Oh, maybe it's too big. It's probably too big to fit on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So I would have had to resize it. But you can see here, you can change all your sizes as you need to. Again, I'm going to make sure that I'm on which card layer I want to cut first. And for this one, I'm actually going to start with my foil. So you guys can see how I put my foil down on my paper. So I go ahead and say continue. And so I've got the 8th mat selected here, and I'm choosing my medium cardstock. I want to use that for everything. That's what I'm using. And then it tells me to load my mat and use my foil paper next. Now, if you're using your pens, don't forget you would have changed that. You would have changed that up to be a pen, and you would kind of skip this step. Okay, so then my light is flashing, telling me it's ready to cut. So we'll hop back over to our overhead camera and grab that one. There we go. And hop over there, and I'll show you how I position these pieces onto a single, all four onto one mat. Take this one off. And like I said, you can move them wherever you want to, wherever it makes sense for you on your mat. I just find that if I can keep it as easy as possible for myself, I like to do that. So working in the four corners for this makes it really easy. And I know that I'll have about 1/4 of an inch around that doesn't get cut, and I don't have to worry about my vinyl strips getting in the middle. So I'm going to take, in fact, let's do, since we're doing 4 of these, why don't I, just for funsies, why don't I grab some different colors, and we'll put some different colors on so you guys can see how the different colors will show up. I see silver in here. So we can do, I have a green foil, green on green, might be kind of cool. I have blue, purple, green, green, purple, blue, and then we'll do copper. Here we go. All right, so I've got 4 different colors. Again, it's my computer. It doesn't matter what colors I'm using. The software and my maker do not care. They don't care. So I will take these, and what I like to do is trim them down a little bit. Now you could use your paper trimmer to do that. I'm going to cheat a little bit, I think. Ooh. And make it a little bit easier on myself, and just use my rotary trimmer here on my mat. They will slide a bit in your paper trimmer, which is okay, that they slide a little bit, but I just want to make it a little easier for myself. So you can absolutely cut them in your paper trimmer. I start in the middle and I cut up and I cut down. But I wanted to make sure I had a nice clean edge there for you guys. Okay, so we'll just lay these out. Actually, I'm just going to do one at a time. Oops. Okay. So we'll just lay these out, and I'm going to use that vinyl strip tape again, and you're just going to do the same process, but this time, instead of just one, we're going to do this process 4 times all at once. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Okay. Now I do have, and we'll hopefully have time to get to it, because I was there. Katie, you're gonna have to, Katie and Christine, you guys are gonna have to remind me what I said I would show. Aside from this, there's the contour, right? On how to change the thank you. Because I just love the size of this card. It's such a fun size to work with, and it's super easy. You can do this now. Don't think about like just using foil on cards. You can use foil on tags. You can use foil on leather. I've done that. That looks neat. If you use like Cricut's pebbled leather, it looks really neat. So you can use the foil on a lot of different materials. I do, if you're using cardstock, I maybe should have mentioned this early on, but I do prefer to use flat cardstock. This cardstock I'm using today has a little bit of a texture. And I do find that it can be a little temperamental with the texture. So I don't get quite as consistent a look as I like. See how I just peeled that right off? Wasn't quite down enough for my liking. So I'm gonna switch that up. So can you use the white sticky tabs more than once? You know, you may be able to. I have not tried to do that because they're usually stuck on when you take them off, they're stuck on your foil sheet, and you get enough in the pack to really use, you don't have to be sparing with them. So this is one thing, when I use tape on anything I do, I'm not sparing with it. Like if it's supposed to be taped down, you want it to be taped down and you want it to hold in place. And you really want it to stay there because you don't want your foil you don't want to use an old piece of, or pre-used piece of the vinyl strip and have your foil move around on you. You want to make sure like that foil is going to stay there. So not only do you want the foil to stay there, but you want your paper to stay there as well. So I'm doing like the tops, the sides. I did that one all once, but then I'm like, ooh, maybe I should just do all the tops, all the sides as I go along. What was the question about leather, about using it on leather, about it getting wet?
Can it get wet?
Oh,
Can
the
the foil,
foil?
like, will the foil wash off?
Good question. I don't think it would because it's kind of like pressed into the surface. So I mean it would rub off probably sooner than it would come off if it got wet. If you're doing it in the lecture, if you're doing it in leather. Jennifer, if you have used up the tape in your kit, I have used blue painter's tape before. I don't get as good a result, but there's every packet you pick up, you get the tapes in it. So if you get if you used up, like as you're learning, if you're like, oh, I used a lot more of those than I expected I would use, then your next pack will have more in it. Don't forget to switch out your tip. We are not using the fine point tip first. We're going to use that foil tip first. It always will do the decorative step first, the foil, the scoring, anything like that. It'll do that step first, and then it will do the cut steps. So we'll get to see how this looks in all the different colors. I'm kind of excited.
Hey, Coach.
Yeah.
Are there different weights of cardstock that you recommend specifically for foil or other materials that work really well with the foil?
I like the I prefer, personally, my preference is to use cardstock that doesn't have a texture to it. So like a very flat cardstock. The weight of the cardstock I don't find works better one weight or another weight for me. Like if you're using 60-pound or 80-pound, I don't really see a difference with that. But you can certainly try it on a variety of different surfaces. Like I was mentioning, you could use the foil on leather. You could use it. I'm trying to think of where else I've used it. I've used it on leather and cardstock. And I feel like I've used it on something else, but I can't think of where have you guys used it. Katie or Christine, do you guys have any fun projects you've used it with?
I love it on Cricut's craft board. It's nice and smooth and it has like a thicker weight to it. So I use it on the craft board for my like gift tags.
Ooh,
I did that.
I like that.
I know Christine has used she's used more materials than I have with it. Once I did the craft board, I loved it so much. I stick with that.
You're like, that's good for me. I like that. That works. Yeah, and the craft board, I wonder, I haven't used it on chipboard, but I bet that would work because it's a little bit softer. and your tip would kind of go in there.
I'm not sure if it's a compatible material, but
Ooh.
it might work.
Yeah,
So
so
yeah,
that's a really good point, Katie, that you bring up or that you mentioned. I can't show it here. If something is not compatible with your machine or with the tools you've selected, it won't show up in the materials. So I'll double check that when we go back into the materials. But if you wanted to use chipboard with your foil, you could set up your design, and then when it goes to compatible materials, then you could see if it would work or not. So Sonia's asking if it would work on basswood. I would think it would, but we'll check. Let's see when we get back. When I'm done with this, we'll go back in and check. Oh, I totally understand. What happens when the foil gets on your mat? Can it be removed from the mat? So I have mats that have foil on it, and I have successfully removed it after many rubbings using the baby wipe. I use baby wipes after I've cut a lot. I'll use a baby wipe and I'll clean my mat off. So I have been able to get it off after multiple wipes with a baby wipe. I would, if it really bothered you, I'd probably take it to the sink and use Dawn dish detergent, and just a soft washing with it might remove it from the mat. But it doesn't interfere. If you get it on the mat, it doesn't come off on other materials, and it doesn't interfere with your cutting. So I don't know, I think I just put it down on the mat by accident, and it did that for me one time. And then once you've done all your cuts with the foils, like you'll start stacking up your pieces as you go. So like I was working on a set before, so I have my thank you and the medallions all cut out. I have my envelopes are drying, so I can just remove my clips now. And I've got my envelopes, and then I have my cards. So when I'm ready, I can even just sit in front of the TV and make my batches of cards for gifts. So that's always great. And I don't know, I'm old fashioned. I really do like the thank you card, the handwritten thank you card. My kids, I am sure that they write thank you cards when they get gifts. So so I like to do that, make sure everybody gets that. And then your foil, it really is fun to make a lot of different styles of cards with your foil. Like here's another project I did using the thank you with just like a little design on it and the foil. And so I made matching envelopes to go with that. That was a fun little set of cards I made. Those are the ones I put in my little white dish right here. So I've got all these different cards. And this is also for you. It's kind of fun to see what the foil looks like on different cards. And if you just have if you were to have cut your foil down like I did, you could take your foil and actually put multiple colors of foil next to each other, and then foil that and kind of get a rainbow look. But if you just have a little piece of foil, you can do a little design on something. But this was such a fun project, and I had so many different colors to work with. So I did purples and golds and the pink on pink, the gold, and then my matching envelopes. So I would you could gift this. Obviously I didn't gift this. I was like, I'm keeping this for myself. It's so pretty. Actually, that one goes with this. So it's just a really pretty spring set of cards. If you need teacher gifts, I think this is a nice gift to add. It's a nice little add-on gift. This elastic, you guys are gonna probably laugh. We made masks during the COVID lockdown. So I still have a bit of elastic left over. And I like it because it's soft and it just fits on your cards really nicely. So you can batch your cards like that. If you want to add some cardstock lining on your envelope, you can just add a little piece of decorative paper in there, And then you can even just, instead of thank you, you could have thinking of you cards or from the desk of cards. Some of you may have taken this workshop with us. It's a fun one.
Coach, I love that you said that like you want to keep it for yourself.
But
And I'm just wondering like if anyone else has done that, because I know this is like really bad, but I made a baby shower gift for my sister-in-law with some canvases and I loved them so much that I kept them. And I'm just wondering if anyone else just does that, where you make something so much that you just have to keep it. You can't even gift it.
you know what? I do not usually do that. I usually gift, I give my crafts away. But there are a few things that I've made. I'm like, I'm keeping this for myself.
I only did it with that one, so 6.5 years. It's the only time I've done it.
Right?
But I kept it. I loved them so much. I kept them.
I love that. So I see a question here that yes, you understand it correctly. Your foil, you would just only use one time. So the foil, like unless you can take like little pieces of it or something like that, like if you trim it down and use like a piece that didn't have the design on it, you could save that. But for the most part, like once you've gone over the design where the foil is, you wouldn't want to reuse it because there's no foil left where those lines went over. So I could trim this off and use this piece of foil, but I would not reuse this piece of foil.
Hey,
So
Coach.
Tina's asking if I could talk about my liners. So what I usually do is I'll do take my envelope and I'll do an offset on the inside. So my design comes out a little bit smaller. And then I don't even put the whole piece, I don't fill up the whole envelope. I'll just kind of chop it off and just have the top part as my liner. I do keep the score line in there. But one thing I do, because Deanna, I had the same problem. Like when I put the fold in it, it kind of would like fold funny. And I was like, I just don't like that. So what I do now is I actually don't adhere the bottom flat. So this part is not glued down. I found that it was like when it was flat and I glued it and then I folded it, it would like, I don't know, it's kind of like asking a card to do a yoga pose at 80 and it just is not bent, it's not saying I'm not going to be malleable at 80, but I know at 50, like it's harder for me to move. And when you have both sides glued down and then you're asking it to fold in half, you just don't get that movement you need. So I will glue my liner piece up here and then let's see if it's so I guess it's just from the fold down that it's open. And you can even see a little bit, like if you look right here, as I fold this, you'll see this move. It's just a hair, but it doesn't move a little bit. And that gives it the movement and the freedom so that my liner piece doesn't bunch up because I know exactly what you mean. All right, now I just need to cut. So I need to remove my foil. You always want to remove that foil before you cut. If you cut with the foil on there, it will bunch up and then cause all kinds of heartache for you. Ooh, look at that purple on the green. Isn't that to die for? I really like that. Then we've got green on green, the big reveal. Wow, that looks so cool. So let's see. Copper, we've got the copper. And you guys keep asking questions. Like I'm not going to cut the rest of these cards out. You can work on that. I do want to show you in Design Space that last step, how to contour out the thank you if you want to change your design. So we'll do that. And then look at that blue. Gosh, these are gorgeous. Okay, I've got my fine point blade in there and we're going to do that. And then we'll also look in Design Space about other materials that you can foil. And the great thing about the materials list, Cricut really has done a lot of work and research to make sure that all of their materials that they recommend for us to use do cut properly with the right settings. You can add your own settings and make your own materials in the materials list. So if you're, if you're trying to cut a different material than we have, you can do that. You can do your own settings, but that doesn't always necessarily mean it will work with the tool. Okay, woo, look at those. Now I would probably, if I had the right foil cardstock, I would match like a blue foil cardstock with this, a green with it, purple. But oh, I love these colors. Let me just undo this so you guys can see. I'll kind of hold them up and shimmer them a little bit. They really turned out more beautiful than I expected. Especially that green. That green with the red backing on it would look so pretty. Okay, so we have the gold. Really pretty. The purple. The green. And then the last one is the blue. Those really turned out gorgeous. I like all those colors. One other thing before I go back to the other camera is I want to show you if you're working on cards or anything like that and color is a problem for you, you may just want to grab a color wheel that will help you pick out your colors. So this is like a really old color wheel I've had for years. It's called the Rainbow Color Selector Color Sense. Sorry, Katie and Christine, I'm just throwing this out there. You probably don't even have a link. I don't even know if it's still available because I've had it for so long. But what I like about it is you can decide which kind of color combination you want to do. So you just have to think about, like, if you're doing a monochromatic, you would use one square and pick colors within that one square. If you're doing a tri, you could do, a more of a conservative using the bigger triangle here, or something a little bit more contemporary with the smaller triangle. But you're just going from one color across and then splitting that over the one color or the three squares here. So if you are working with a lot of cards or you want to get into card making, but you're like, oh, I don't know, my colors don't always work out the way that I want them to. How do I do that? I would recommend grabbing the color wheel because so here's my red color here. And that was this color wheel. And then I went down to the green and I picked my green color. And then I went over to the blue and picked the blue color. And so that's how I knew that those three colors would work together in my card. So if you're getting into card making and you're struggling a little bit with your colors, the color wheels are fantastic, but also look at your clothes, the colors that are in your clothes and stuff like that. To see what color combinations work. That's kind of what I always do. I look at a shirt I like and say, oh, what colors do they are in that shirt? And how do I use those colors to put together a card? Okay, so before we end, I do want to show you guys in Design Space a couple things. One is I want everybody, once you've made your cut, and even if you haven't cut today, if you're just watching along with us and maybe you've made it and you're going to go back, maybe you've designed the project, but you're going to go back and cut it later. I would love everybody to save your project. So hit save and then just save as and give it a name. So it could be foiled card workshop or whatever you want to name it. So you can always come back and find this project that you did today. It's there. It'll be at your fingertips. You can cut it as many times as you would like. And then you can just take a picture. What I like to do is I will take my phone. A lot of times I'll just take my phone and where's my phone? I'll just take my phone and go to my camera, and you want to put your phone on horizontal because in Design Space, your image of your project ends up being a square. So if you think about that when you're taking a picture of something, you just want to grab, I'm just going to do this real quick because I think this is a good little extra tip, and then we'll go into Design Space, and I promise I'll show you guys how to contour. But what I want to challenge everybody to do is save the project and put your project up, share your project up in Design Space so other people can see it and we can add to that community list of projects. So I'm just going to grab a piece of pattern paper here. I'm going to put that down on my surface. I'll put my card on there. And sometimes if like my card is flipping open, oops, that's not the card. I will actually use tape and tape it in place to sort of manhandle it a little bit and put it where I want it to go. So I may have to put a little tape there, temporary, grab my card. Now with my card like this, I'm just going to take my phone. Sometimes I have to get out of my own way. If I'm putting a shadow on it. Okay, it's going to have a shadow. I would normally try and get rid of that shadow. But I'm just going to kind of come up a little bit, take my phone. Now, in Design Space on my phone, it's so much easier to add that picture to your project in Design Space. So I just go into Design Space. And let's see, if I go to my overhead, I think I can show you guys this. Okay, so here I am in my Design Space and just go to My Stuff, Projects. There's that foil card project. I'll click on that one. I'll add photo. And like I said, this photo did have a shadow on it, so I'll probably retake it. See how it's got that shadow on it, but that's okay. If that's the best I could do, then that's how I'm going to leave it. And I'm going to save that. And then this is the last step. Once you've saved it with a picture, you can then click that forward arrow and share to Design Space. Now everybody can find that project and you can inspire somebody else within Design Space on a project, which I think is always so fun. You can also, in Design Space, find other people in the community that you like. So if you wanted to, you could go to like to find my profile. For example, you could just type in my name, Hesley Anderson, in the home screen and scroll down to where the profiles are. If you didn't know, community member profiles are right here. You click on the person's, you can click on that person's name. So you could click on my name, follow me right here. Instead of edit profile, it would say follow. And then there's the project right there. And you can just give that a little like or whatever, or maybe there's another project that inspires you that I've created and you can get started that way. I always find it's great inspiration from what other people have created. So I like to look and see what other people are making and what they're doing in Design Space. And I also love to see when you guys create something from a class. I get to, if you share that link, then if you share your project, I'll get to see it too. Okay, so now for that long awaited, how do you change the thank you up on the canvas? So if you wanted to keep the card and use this card for something else at another time, I'm just hiding some of these layers to make it a little easier. See, let's go bigger. Okay, so I have the thank you right here. Now, in Design Space, in my profile, in my stuff, I have actually another card using this card that I did right here. It's another foiled holiday card, and I added the holly instead of having like just the little circle thing. I added some holly there, and I kept the thank you. So I just changed out the holly. So this is another card. If you'd like this card, if you're like, oh, I want to make that one, you could absolutely do that. So let me go back to my canvas. So To remove pieces of an image, you would use contour, and you have to select the layer of the layer that you want to change and modify, and that layer that you want to change and modify has to have like additional lines inside of it. So if I just took that thank you, that's the foil design, not the back part there. And guys, this is all being recorded. So again, you'll be able to come back in and take a peek and pause this and try it. Okay. So once you have just that layer selected, you're going to go to contour, and think of contour as like an eraser. So when you contour, you're removing or hiding parts of a design that you don't want. So if you wanted to take out the thank you word, you could click on each of the parts of it. Any part that would be a line that's cut or drawn, you just click on that and it will hide that from your design. So now I've removed the thank you. And then you can just go to text and add a text box. Now, if you're using the foil tip, it works like the pen tip in that it follows the line of a blade. So when you're working with a font that you want to foil, you want to use a font that works well with pens. So if you click in the font edit bar here and you filter your fonts using writing fonts, and let's see what it filters it down to. So you get a lot of different fonts that you can choose from. Cricut Sans is always a good one, but you have all these other fonts that are great for writing and will work well with the foil tip or the pen. So there it is with the foil, with my text changed. And like, if you just wanted to keep it simple and maybe write hello, and then you'd come up to your operation, and instead of a pen, we're going to change that to a medium foil. And then put that right in there, like that. Now, you have one more step to that, because as you can see in the layers panel, the hello layer is separate from the outside design. So what I need to do is take that hello layer. I'm going to hold the shift key and select that outside design, not the blue part, but the pen part. See if I can just get that. Maybe I have to go over and click it. And then I'm going to hit the tab and hit just the hello. Nope, because I want to do it. Shift and then click on both of those layers. Now with only those two foil layers selected, you need to come down to your attach those layers together so that when you go to your prepare screen, those layers are held together on your mat, and the foil and the cuts will happen on the same mat. If you are not familiar with attach, I really want to encourage you to join us for our 102 workshop, where we really go into, we do the layers panel, and we really talk about all of the different tools down there, the attach, weld, slice, contour. Those, we really go into a deep dive on those 4 layers during our 102 class, which, so if that's something you want to learn, you would want to, you definitely would want to jump in on that workshop, and that'll just give you really learning how to use your Cricut machine. It's you've got to learn Design Space a little bit and all that you can do with it, because you really have so many options and ways that you can create within Design Space, and the materials and mixing and matching it all together really makes it for a yummy adventure. All right, are there any other, were there any other questions, Kate, that we needed to touch on or anything?
I know that somebody asked about single layer and double layer, and then about if you're searching images for like images to foil, can you filter to get images to foil?
Yes, so I'm not sure what you mean by single layer and double layer. So if you
Oh,
can,
sorry, for the fonts.
oh, for the
Oh, yeah. It's like a single layer and then double layer. Like, so the double layer already has the offset behind it.
right, right, right. So certain fonts you'll have like it'll have two fonts in one. So there's one I use a lot. It's like a sports kind of university looking one, and it has an outline included in the font. So it's a single layer or a double layer. So it just has two layers already in the font. That's what that means. And as far as like finding other images that you can work with in Design Space, you can really almost take any image and convert it to a pen drawing. But if you want to filter, you would just do a search. So if you're gonna, like, let's say you want to make holiday tags. Let's go back in here. Let's say I wanted to make a tag with some snowman on it or something. So if I did snowman and did a search for snowman, I'd get a lot of options. But if I wanted to, I could go and look for ones for the operation type that are only draw. So you go draw only, and then you would get a variety of snowmen that are ready, that are already, or snowflakes here, that are already in a draw format. And all you would need to do is add that to your canvas. So let's grab this first snowman here, or snow woman. Let's add that to my canvas. And so since it's already in the draw format, it's already in like a pen style. And then we can just add a tag. Here we go. Find a simple tag shape. So let's just grab this tag here. So we'll just kind of make that a little bit bigger, make our snowman or snow woman here a little bit smaller. Rise her up to the top of the tag. Oops. I'm going to send that to back. My poor little snowman, I need to change her to a foil medium. And there we go. She'll be on the tag. I can select the tag and the snow woman. And we're going to align those horizontal center. And then you want to attach that together. So when you go to your prepare screen, it will show on the same mat, and it'll do the foil and the cut on the same mat. And that's it. So you just look for you just would look for images that are draw images, but you can also, a lot of times you can convert a cut image into a draw image. The only thing you have to remember is it's like the fonts. So wherever there is a cut line, there will be a draw line. So for example, if you were, I'm trying to think of what is a good example. If you are cutting something out, it's going to cut the outside of the design and the inside of the design. So I think it's best if you look for designs that are specifically for draw, and then you can use those. And you can also do a search for foil projects and things like that if you want to get more experience with using your foil tip. But I think that's all we have the time for. I will answer this last question about I wish I could say that I did my macrame behind me. That came from a store locally a while ago. I loved the design of it. So thank you for asking, but I wish I could tell you where I got it. I don't even remember. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And again, my challenge, I forgot to tell you my challenge. My challenge is save your project, take the photo. I'm going to retake my photo so I don't have that shadow in there, but take the photo, save it to the Cricut community. I want to see it there. And then also, if you want to share it in one of our Facebook groups, we have some excellent Facebook groups. We have a Facebook group specifically for card makers, for beginners, and then our big official Facebook group, which is, for anybody at any time. And you can share in any of those three spots. I'd love to see what you're making. I'd love to see what you're creating. So be sure to tag me, or our admins will tag me in there and I can be like, oh, good job. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining me. Katie and Christine, as always, thank you guys so much for joining me and answering all the questions.